show mode, right? And this is show on. So in Linux or Unix-like operating system, the show on meaning change owner. Show on means change owner. Command is used to change the ownership of a file and directories. Changing ownership is typically done by a super user. A super user meaning you have to be a root user. If you're not a root user, but you can elevate your privilege using a sudo, right? A super user is a root user. If you're not a root user, you can elevate your privilege and use a sudo. When you use a sudo, you elevate your privilege, right? Before you can use it, because you're changing ownership. So whoever changes ownership has to be like an administrator or someone that has a super user privilege to be able to do that. Okay. So let's continue. So command show on options, you have a -r option, which is a recursive, change ownership recursively for directories and other contents. Then you can use the -c, right? Report only when a change is made. So these changes report only, and this is how you can do a verbose. Verbose is display the changes made, right? You can use those options when you're making changes. So let's take a look at, for example, I have this, I want to change the ownership of a file named my file, right? We'll do a hands-on on this so you can see exactly how it works. So we do sudo cho owned John. For example, you want ownership, John to own this file. You want to change ownership to John. You do sudo cho own John, the name of the owner that you want to change to, then the file name, right? Another thing is to change the owner and the group of a directory named my directory to Alice, right? And the group users. So you respectively you do sudo cho on Alice user, right? Then my directory. So the directory name is my directory, right? You want to change that to Alice and the group users respectively. So you want to change both of them respectively. But in other words, you want to change the username and you want also to change the group name. Okay, so you can do that hand in hand. Let me demonstrate that real quick so we can take a look at it. Clear this. Okay, for example, let's see what files we have here. So we do ll. If we do ll, you see we have a directory here called class 003. We have a file here called combined. Who owned this file? Who owned this file? Can someone tell me who owned this file? Who owned the file called combined? Any taker?
I guess the root user.
Nope, it's not the root user. Who owned the file? Any other question? Any other taker who can answer the question? Dion, Idong, who owns this file? Combine.txt. Who is the owner?
Which file is it again?
Combine.txt. This file right here. Where's my annotation? I think I have annotation. It's not the root user that owns it. Someone owns it. Who owns it? My annotation is here. So this is the file I'm looking at.
Is it EC2-user?
EC2-user is the owner of this file. This is the user.
Yeah.
This is the group that owns this file.
Right.
Okay. All right. So this file, we know that it is a file because it starts with a dash. And the user has read-write access or permission, read-write permission. The group has a read permission, and every other person has a read permission. So this is a group. This is the user. Okay. And you know it's a file because it starts with a dash. If it's a directory, it starts with a D. So this is a directory. Okay. So I want you to understand this. When you understand this, you'll be able to understand what we're doing. So in this case, the owner of this file is EC2 user. And if I want to change the ownership of this file to someone else, how do I do that? How do I get rid of this? I did my annotation. Now I don't know how to get rid of annotation. Hold on a second. Okay, I think it's over now. Okay, so if I want to change ownership of this combined file, which one was it? Combined. Yeah, this was it. The combined file. What is it? Yeah, this is a combined file. This is the one. If I want to change ownership of this, how do I change ownership? Right. So first of all, do we know the users? Because you gotta have the users first. If you don't have the users, you cannot just change it to. What is the command to check a user? Or for example, I want to check the group or the users. The user of, I can use an ID. For example, if I do ID combine. Let me see if we can find out using the ID. No, combine doesn't have any ID. So let's do get entire group. Right. So using get entire group, you see the users, right? You see the users, we have C, you have D, have B, A, have James, you have Inem, you have Hassan, you have all these people that are users. So if I want to change ownership of that file, right? It was combine.txt. Combine.txt. If I want to change the ownership of this to maybe James, how do I do it? So this is the formula I'll use because I need to elevate my privilege. That's why I'm using a sudo show on, right? Now I want to change it to James, and the name of the file is combined.txt. Okay. Now if I do LL now, let's look at it. See, the combined now becomes the owner is now James. Right? Does that make sense? And another way, if I need to be a super user, right? If I want to be a root user, so I can become, if I do SU, right? It's going to ask me for a password. I don't have a password, so I'm going to exit this, right? SU-I will give me invalid because I don't establish. Wait a minute. How do I become a super user again? SU sudo SU. Right, sudo SU. I have to elevate my privilege to be able to become a sudo. Sorry, I cannot. Let me get rid of this annotation. Can you see? Okay. So now I become root. So if you do sudo SU, yeah, you become a root user. So you can run this, being a super user. You don't need to use a sudo anymore. So you can change this, can do chow on, right? Now I want to change it to D, right? D, then combined .txt, right? If I do LL now, you see, now I've changed that to combine. Now I'm running as a root user. Now I'm a super user now because I'm a root user. Okay. Right. So you see, I'm a super user now. So I'm able to run this without using a sudo. So I've elevated my privilege. Now I'm a root user. Okay. So in the same way, you can also change the group name, right? And you can also change the username at once. So let's take a look at this. For example, let's look at a directory. Let me clear this. Which directory do we have here? We have a directory called class 002, right? And the groups that we have we have a group name called maybe G. We have a group. This is a group name. GA, right? Okay, let's see if we can change this class 003 directory. First of all, change the ownership. The ownership is EC2 user. Change the ownership and change the group. Let's see if we can do that. Okay, so for example, we have we're going to do sudo. I can just do chown on, right? And chown on. What I want to do, let's change it to D and A, was it AG? G AEE, and the name of my file is class 003. I hope I made this correctly. So let me clear this. I do LL again. So you see, I have changed the user to D, and the group is AG. So this is what I did. Okay, I did a sudo chown. What was it? D AG. Then the name of the file was class 003, right? That's exactly what I did, right? And that changes the user, and it also changes the group name. Okay, so this is the command. If you want to change the file, the ownership of the file, you also want to change the group who owns the file. You use this command. Okay.
Question.
Go ahead.
If you want to maintain the user and it's just the group you want to change, so how do you do it?
You can change a group to, and this is how you do it. For example, I want to change sudo chown. I want to change, I only want to do a group change. So for example, what's the name? So this is D. I keep it D. Then I want to change, what's another group that I have here? Maybe I want to change this to root user, right? Let's see if I can change it to root user without privilege. Okay, so let's do LL now. So class C, I'm keeping the same name, then the root, right? So you keep the name, still use the same name, then you change this to the group name to whatever group name you want to change to. Okay, any other question? So with this command, you can play around. You want to change only the user. If you only want to change the user, you can use this, but you want to change the user and the group, or vice versa, you can use this as well. Okay, very straightforward. You just need to know the command and use it. Okay, what else? You can recursively change the ownership of a file and directories under a directory name. So recursively means, so when you are doing automation, right, and you want to recursively, whenever that name comes in, whenever the directory comes in, you don't want to stop your program. If your program is running, you won't want to stop it every time and make that changes. So this means recursively, when if the program is running and recursively is going to change it automatically for you. So you do it once and it will continue doing that as your automation goes on. So you use that option -R to make changes. So to run it is the same way. The only thing is you're adding a new option, right? So for example, we want to change, let's look at, in this case, it's a directory. We want to change ownership of, okay, let's look at this, right? We want to change IT file, right? Okay, so I want to change IT file. So the same thing, chown, right, -R. Then I want to change it to what? Let's say I want to change it to D, right? Then I call it my IT file. Okay, so if I do LL now, my IT file now has been changed to D, right? But it's going to do it recursively. Anytime, any place, anywhere else I have a file that comes up, that will be changed, and it can never, nothing can, but this is mostly used when you're doing automation, right? Otherwise, you don't really need the recursive changes. Yeah. Okay. To change a group of a file name, right, to a group project, you can also do this. So we've done this as well. So this is the same thing that we did with the other file. This is changing the group name, right? You can change the group name. This is the question you were asking as well. You see, you can, with this column, without using the username, you can only change the group name. In this case, you don't really need to add that. See, when we added the username here before but with this column, right? The difference between this and this one, you see this, we have to use the user and the group. This one, you don't need to add the user, and this will only change the group name for you. Okay. So for example, let's take an example. This is, we already have, so without show on column, and we want to change D back to EC2 user. Right, changing that to EC2 user plus the file name is plus 003, right? We do LL now, right? Do we change that? Okay, so now the group has been changed back to EC2 user, right? So we still maintain D, so the group has been changed to EC2 user, right? So you can use that. So that is how you use the show on. We will show you how to use the show mode command to change the file permission, then the show on to change the ownership. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can do one more thing before we take a break. Show on and show on is very important, right? I would emphasize the things that are important so you can take note, right? First, it may come up in your interview. Second, is something that you'll use, right? There are some commands here that this probably will be the last place that you've heard about it. You'll never see it again. If you see it again in course of your career, might be once or twice, right? There are some commands I'll tell you. These commands are very important because you'll be using them a lot, okay? Another one is the copy command, right? I didn't have this previously, so I'm going to repose this slide. I added this because I noticed I missed the copy command. This is important as well, right? So this is what happens. If you want to copy a file, how do you copy it, right? Everybody knows what copy is. So I have a file, I want to copy the file. I want to give it a different file name. How do I do it? So that's what a copy command does, right? We'll rush through this. It's very simple command. This is the syntax. CP is for copy. Then the options, source and destination. So source is where are you copying it from and where are you copying it to? Source and destination. You can also do the same for a directory, right? Source, the source you're copying it to, the directory that you want to put it, right? And here's another option, source 1, source 2, source 3. Then you want to put all this in one directory, right? So if you have a file name, these 3 file names, want to put it in the directory. So these are the syntax. These are the things that you can do with copying. So it means you can copy more than one file into a directory. So first and second syntax is used to copy source file destination. The third syntax is used to copy multiple files into a directory, meaning you can copy more than one file into a directory. Okay. All right. We can take a look at some example, right? Let me put my, let this up. This annotation, I think I have an eraser. Let me erase this annotation real quick. It's becoming annoying. The problem is I don't, yeah. Sorry, this is my first time of using annotation and I can't get rid of it. When you have annotation, you always have an eraser to erase it. I don't have it. I can't. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. No. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quick. So if I do an ls command, everybody knows what an ls command is, right? List, right? If I do ls command would list all the files and directories that I have, right? It's a simple command. Ls command, I know we've not explicitly talked about it, but you've seen me use it a lot, right? So ls command is one of the common commands that you will use a lot, right? So for example, if I have a file, I think I already created a file here called a.txt. In other words, I touch a file and I call it a.txt. To create a file, you can use a touch command. I hope you remember that, right? Right. So that file is created, right? So if I do ls, you'll see a file called a.txt, right? So I can also create another file. I call it touch b.txt, right? So if I do ll command, you'll also find a file called b.txt. So these two files are created, right? Okay, so I can add contents to this file. How do I add contents to the file? So I can do a vi command, right? And open that file a.txt. When I open this file, this gives me an editor. We'll get into an editor. I still have it in a slide, but this is how to open an editor. Then if you do I will put you in insert mode. Then you can type. This is a very good subject, right? Now I'm populating this file that I created. I can hit the escape key, then I do shift key, ZZ. Don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to close this, right? I'll teach you all the commands on how to close this, right? We have it down in the slide. So I've populated something in this slide now. So if I want to actually see the content of this file, I can do a cat command, right? To see the contents of this file. I can do cat a.txt, right? Now I see the content of this file is, this is a very good subject. That's what I put in that file and save it, right? Or you can open this file again to see what the content is. If I do a vi command, you'll see the content is there, okay? All right, so now I can save and close this. Now, what I want to do now, I want to copy the contents of what I have in a.txt into another file, b.txt, that I created. So in other words, I want to run this command, cp a.txt, b.txt, copy contents of file A into file B. So I can do something like this, cp a.txt, b.txt, right? It says I already has something in that I want to override it. I already had something, so I want to override it. Say yes. So now, if I open the file, do a cat on b.txt, you see the content that I had in a.txt has been copied into b.txt. And that's how to copy a file into another file. Okay, does that make sense? All right, okay. That is one example. There are other examples. The copy command, it's a long one. So let's take a look. I can also copy one or more arguments. If the command has one or more arguments, specifying the names of the following arguments, an argument specifying directory name, then this command copies each source file to the destination directory with the same name. So in other words, I can have file 1, file 2, file 3. I can have different files and copy all those files into a directory. Okay, take a look at this. So this is, for example, I have a.txt and I have b.txt and I have a folder called new, right? I can copy a.txt, b.txt, and put them all in a new folder called new. Okay, so let's take a look at it real quick. Hold on a second. Let me bring up my mobile extra. Okay, so take a look at this. I have populated, so if I do cat a.txt, I have, this is a very good subject, right? And if I populate what I mean, I have, I want to view b.txt. I also have the same thing because I had copied file A into file B, but let me modify this a little bit so that we have, so I can do vi b.txt, right? So I want to add something into this file so we have a differentiator. This is a very good subject, and I think I really like it. Okay, let me save and close that. Okay, so now I have file A, file B. I don't have a directory. I've not created a directory, but this could create a new directory for me. Let's see. If I do something like this, copy, let's see if it's going to do that for me. Otherwise, it's going to ask me to create a directory if I don't have a directory. If I do copy a.txt, right, and copy b.txt, and I want to put it in a directory called new. By the way, I have not created any directory called new. Let's see if that works. A target new is not a directory. So I don't have a directory. So I have to create this directory. So how do I create a directory? I'm already a root user, right? So I've visited my privilege. I'm a super user. So I don't need to use sudo, but I can do make directory new. Okay. So now if I do ls now, you see that this directory is created and it's called new, and it gives a different, it's a different color, right? It's a directory. Files are white, directories have different colors. Now I have a directory called new. So if I rerun this command now, a.txt, right, b.txt, then new, right? Now it runs, it doesn't ask me any question, right? It doesn't shout at me. So I have a directory called new now. If I want to cat, can I cat this directory? Right? I can do ls new, right? If I do ls new, list what is the content of this directory, you see that I have the two files in my directory, meaning I've copied these two files and I've put them in my directory. Okay, so that's a copy command. You can copy files into your directory, right? A directory is more like a folder. So I have a folder, all right, I have files, then I move them into my folder. That's exactly what this is. Let's look at another example. Recursively, you can also do this recursively using the R command as well, right? Like we did in previous example. Do I need to use the same thing? Do I need to showcase this? I don't think so. It's the same thing that we're doing, right? So let's skip this slide real quick. You can take a look at it. It's recursive way of, you can do the same thing with the big R command. You have the source directory, right? And you can move it to, well, this is a directory. The other one, we did a file, right? So let's experiment. Let's demonstrate this real quick. So I have a directory. The first directory I had was new that I created. So if I do a cp, I want to copy, take a look at this. I want to copy this new directory to another directory called old. What does it say? It would not let me do that, right? It's asking for me to use a -r, right? So if I do that again, run that command again, copy, and I put a -r. Now you see, I did not even create this directory. With the -r option, right? With the -r option, right? It's creating this directory automatically. It didn't scream at me that I didn't have this directory. So I do ls old. You see, ls old now has the contents of my directory, right? And I can also do, if I did this, right? -br, right? I can also copy new into a new directory, call it old A, okay? Right? If I do ls old A, you see it's copied it, it created this directory automatically, even though I did not have this directory. it will create this directory and copy the contents of the other directory into this directory, right? So that's using the option R for recursive copying. So that would help us do that for us, okay? But you need to use the option R.